Welcome to This Organized Life. If you're a mom, wife, or coffee lover seeking advice on how to reduce clutter and reclaim time, look no further than your host, Lori Palau, founder of Simply Be Organized and author of Hot Mess, a practical guide to getting organized. For a lot of people, clutter is their dirty little secret, but it doesn't have to be. Each week, we will share practical tips, chat with experts, and provide strategies on how to keep you organized. I hope that by sharing our stories, you feel a little less alone and more empowered to tackle the areas that are holding you back. So let's get started.
Hi, everybody. I'm your host, Lori Palau. Welcome to This Organized Life podcast. I am so happy that you are here today joining us. And I'm really excited about today's topic because it's something that I've been wanting to do for a while and just trying to figure out the best time to do it. And we had Matt Paxton on last week. I don't know if you guys listened. If you didn't, go back and listen. I strongly encourage it. It was a great interview. And Matt had spent the better part of his career helping people that were like hoarders or hoarder-like tendencies do major cleanouts, which is a completely different model than a lot of our guests who are on our show or a lot of the professional organizers who we partner with who help people like busy moms or busy executives who just don't have the time to do things. But it's not as much on the psychological level that comes into play when you're working with somebody that has chronic disorganization or hoarding tendencies, something of a larger emotional magnitude. And if you've been around me for any amount of time, you know that I have always looked at clutter into three specific areas: your physical clutter, the stuff that you see; your emotional clutter, which is the stuff, the guilt and fear that hold you back from making decisions; and then your calendar clutter, which is time management, working efficiently, working smarter, not harder, all of those things. And although all three of those clutter types are intertwined, it all boils down to understanding the emotional or the psychological components of clutter. And that clutter really is something that goes deeper than the pile of paper, the dishes in the sink, the clothes on the floor, fill in the blank. And I talk a lot about that in my book. All of the new work that I've done with clutter and the Enneagram does obviously a really big introspective dive on a very granular level, looking at each of the different 9 types and how they relate to clutter, and the 5 clutter pitfalls, which again, just real quick, the 5 clutter pitfalls. And we have episodes on those, and I'm not going to go into all of them in detail, but procrastination, which is, putting things off indefinitely or for a certain period of time; that indecision of, I don't know what to do, so I'm not going to do anything at all. I'm just going to kind of put this over here and deal with it later. Then, of course, you have your guilt, which is, somebody made this for me. I have sentimental feelings towards it. I spent a lot of money on it. All of the guilt that comes up. I would feel badly getting rid of it. What if somebody, came over and, Aunt Edna got me this candy dish? Whatever. There's all kinds of craziness. It's not craziness, but you know what I mean. People's minds get a little, they can go down a rabbit hole, let's just say. And then, of course, you have overwhelm, which is just something that many of us struggle with, which is, I don't know. I feel like I'm drowning. I don't know where to begin. So that is something that's a really big one for a lot of people. And then time being, I'm going to do this, but I just don't have the time. I'm so overscheduled. That has a direct correlation specifically with your calendar clutter, because obviously if you are constantly running and you're not home, it's really difficult to spend the time to declutter and get organized. So that being said, I think one of the first things that I do when I work with people is try to help them identify kind of where their problem is and where their struggles are. And from there, it will allow me to determine really if they need some tactical help with, I'm just busy. I need the right bins. I need the right systems. I need some labels. I want it to like look something like on Instagram or Pinterest. And that's great. And a lot of professional organizers do that. But there's a whole other spectrum of people that I call clutter coaches. And a clutter coach to me is somebody that really wants to help you unpack where you're struggling and work with you on a different level to help you change the behaviors that have gotten you into the situation in the first place and allow you to develop some new habits so that moving forward, you can start to develop those healthy habits and build those muscles. Okay. So your habits over the years, maybe struggling with emotional clutter as something that, whether it's I'm emotionally shopping or I'm emotionally holding on to things, if there's a lot of emotion tied to your clutter, this is something that you might want to lean into. This is also a good lesson for people who are thinking about coming into this business, or if you are in this business, to know, is this the type of work that you want to be doing? Are these the type of clients that you want to work with? Some people love working in that counseling, coaching modality, and other people really don't. They want to just like go to the Container Store, get a bunch of bins, label them, make it really color coded and pretty, and be on their merry way. And there's no right or wrong. There's no good and bad. And that's what I love about this particular industry, because it is a spectrum. There is a spectrum of people that have different gifts. There's different people who have desires for different organizing goals. And whether your goal is to have your, closet look like, something that you could see in a magazine, I think I totally just dated myself, but something that you could see on Instagram, or if you are just trying to be able to see your kitchen table because it is so cluttered with bills and papers and whatnot, like both of those are equally important. It's what's important to you, because what I tell people all the time, and it's one of my most like retweeted quotes from my book, is clutter is more about how it makes you feel. It's not about what you see. It's about how it makes you feel. So with that, I want to start to just go through a few different things that you can think about if you are going to be working with somebody who's struggling with some chronic disorganization, or you are somebody. Okay. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to work in really small, almost micro project level. For example, and I've talked about this before. I've said time and time again, start small. You want to get these little wins under your belt. But if you are somebody who specifically is struggling with clutter, or you're a professional organizer and you're working with somebody who's specifically struggling with clutter, you want to reduce that amount of overwhelm, and you want them to be able to see some quick wins, get some quick wins under their belt. And so as opposed to saying, we're going to organize, or we're going to work on your closet, we're just going to work on your shoes. So you're going to say, or for example, instead of saying, we're going to do the kitchen, we're just going to do the kitchen counter, or we're just going to do this one little space. So very, very small. That is the best way. Well, I don't want to say it's the best way. I don't like to say that. I have found in my experience, that is the most effective way to work with people who struggle with chronic disorganization. A lot of times when you see people who have chronic disorganization, they might struggle with paper clutter. And so you're talking about lots of maybe newspapers, magazines, unopened mail, things of that nature. So just to be able to get a clear surface is a win. So you might not have the entire filing system set up. You might not have, you're not necessarily changing the behavior right away, because again, behavior takes a long time to develop, and it's not going to, your poor habits aren't going to go away overnight. It's a process. So just starting small is really, really important. So those small micro goals, that's step one. Step two, and this is really important. So a lot of times when I work with a client, or when I've worked with clients in the past, they'll give me the project, we'll get the overview of the scope, and they don't really have to be there. They're there for a little bit during the decluttering phase because they need to know what to keep. I need to know what to keep and what is okay to get rid of. But then once that's done, they can, go do whatever they need to do. And a lot of times clients aren't even there, they're at work or running around with their kids or doing other things. And the professional organizer's there making it all pretty and then doing like, a reveal, or they're coming home to this beautifully organized pantry. Well, that's great. When you're working with somebody who has chronic disorganization, it's going to look differently. The process is going to look differently. And one of the things that I do, because I have found that there's a lot of fear because they've gotten here to a certain point. And again, assuming that they're ready to make a change and they've initiated this time together, articulating the process is even more important than before. Like I always tell people, I think it's really important to teach your clients what you're doing so that they can maintain it. But I have found that communication and really articulating and walking them through what it is that we're doing. Okay. So for example, I would say, okay, we're going to use my ESP method. So we're going to, which stands for empty, sort, and purge. And so what we're going to do is we're going to empty. And in this case, it might just be, we're going to take all the stuff that's on the kitchen counter or the kitchen table or the dining room table or this chair, whatever it is. And we're going to take this off. So now we have a clean slate. So that's your empty phase. And then we're going to sort, and we're going to sort it into 4 main piles. Our keep pile, which is the stuff that we're going to keep in that current space. Now, if it's someone with chronic disorganization, chances are you're probably not going to keep stuff on the kitchen table. So most times we're going to be like, okay, we're going to keep it, but it's going somewhere else, which will go into the relocate pile. So you've got keep, then you've got donate, which is the stuff that is in good condition, but we don't need anymore. We're not using it. It's not serving us anymore. It can serve somebody else better. We're donating it to a friend, a family member, a charitable organization, a church, a preschool, wherever. Then we have the recycle pile, which is stuff that is either broken or damaged or expired. And that's stuff that goes in the trash or recycling. So it's no good, no bueno. So you've got your keep, your donate, your recycle. And then the 4th pile is going to be relocate. And this, for a lot of people, especially if you struggle with chronic disorganization, I am having difficulty with that. Those 2 words today. You are going to probably have a larger relocate pile because if they're disorganized, chances are stuff either isn't in its proper home or it never even had a proper home to be defined. So once you can start to say, okay, this is the process, this is our model, and we're going to use this as in every space that we go to. So you can use this ESP and 4-pile method in any space of the house. And that's really what we do when we're working with our clients. But by articulating it, it does a couple things. First of all, it breaks down the process. So our clients know what's going on. So there's no surprises. Second of all, it's teaching them so that when you walk out the door, they can do it on their own. And so if you're somebody at home that is doing this, what it's hopefully doing is removing some of that overwhelm of, I don't know what to do, or that indecision of, I don't know what to do. This is now you have a roadmap. Now you have a process that you can work towards. And even if you're not really, really sure, like where something should live, just having to make some sort of decision and understand this is not the proper place for it is a step in the right direction. It's just being mindful and intentional. That is really, really important. So the third thing that I think is really important for people who are working, especially if you're working on your own and you're not working, if you're working with a professional organizer, you know that they're there for a certain amount of time and you have, X amount of hours to get a bunch of stuff done. If you're working by yourself and this process can be overwhelming. What I do with a lot of people, and I've done this, and parents can do this also with your kids, is set a timer for a certain amount of time. And I know it sounds almost like elementary, but it really does work. And you say, I'm going to do as much as I can in this amount of time. And that's not to be, it's not meant to be more anxiety producing. What it's supposed to do is just say, I am reclaiming control of my calendar. So again, calendar clutter. And I'm I'm allotting myself 30 minutes to deal with this space. And again, it could be 30 minutes. If you have a lot of time and you want to spend an hour or 2 hours or 4 hours, great. But I'm saying just starting to develop that muscle and getting in the habit of saying, okay, I'm going to do this for 30 minutes. And then I'm going to see how far I've gotten is really a great starting point. It's a great launch pad for you to then say, okay, I'm going to do this every day or every other day, or for, 10 minutes before I go to bed, I'm going to do a sweep around and pick up any dishes that have been left around, whatever it is. But using timers, and everybody has a timer on their phone nowadays. I mean, again, it's easy. It's not like before where you had to have that old like egg timer that you'd sit on the counter. Everybody has a clock, everybody has timers. So it's super easy to set that. And then then you are free to go about your business. And so having that defined start and end time really allows people to go, I can do this for this amount of time. So I think that's another great thing for somebody that is struggling with chronic disorganization. Okay. The next one is about really writing down your why. And I know we talked about earlier last month, we had our goal setting episode, and I was talking about the importance of the why. I think it's really important when we're going through the process of decluttering, which can be very physically and emotionally draining for a lot of people, is to know what your why is, to be able to say, this is why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because I don't want, and you can fill in the blank, I don't want to leave a big, literally a mess for my family to clean up after I pass away. It could mean I don't want to have my kids grow up in a home that's, in disorganized chaos. I want to lead by example. I want to start a side hustle, and I need this extra space in my guest room, or I need this closet, or I need this whatever. So whatever your why is, that's your business and that's yours to know. But when you get frustrated, and chances are you will, because like anything, when we go through a process, it gets frustrating, and things aren't going the way that we want or as quickly as we want, or something comes up and it's an emotional trigger. It's easy for us to want to abandon ship when we feel uncomfortable. That's just a normal human reaction. And so if you can come back to your why, that is really, really important. And so I tell people, again, if you know that, write it down. Having things written down is really important. Have it somewhere that you can come back and look at it. I don't care if it's digital and a note in your phone. I don't care if it's something that you print out and you tape it to the mirror or whatever. It just should be somewhere visible that you can come back and see it. And again, having documentation for a lot of people to really be able to track their progress and see those wins is huge. And there's a couple ways that you can do that. So tracking your progress can come by before and after pictures, which are huge. I did that with a client once, and she happens to be somebody that struggles with some chronic disorganization. And I showed her when she was like, oh, I feel like I haven't really gotten that far. We've been working together for a while. And I showed her pictures of her space when we had started working together a year ago, and fast forward to where we were now. And it was night and day. She didn't even recognize the space, but you forget. And so having those visual reminders to track your progress is huge. Another thing that you can do is to create a checklist of all of the places that you want to hit, all of the places in your home or your space that are driving you crazy. I don't like the fact that that chair in the corner of my bedroom always becomes a dumping ground. I don't like the fact that we are using um, the dining room table as, a mail drop, whatever it is. So write down a list, and then every time you declutter that space, check it off. And that again will help you to build that muscle and that momentum. And that leads me to our final tip, which is to what I call rinse and repeat. It's that repetition, that constant discipline and repetition is what is going to change the behavior. And that is what we're looking for. This is something that is not a one and done. Decluttering is not a one time thing. Unfortunately, being organized is not a one time thing. There is, again, you don't have to be completely OCD where everything is super perfect. That's not what we're talking about. But you are going to have to go into a space and declutter it periodically. You're going to want to go in, whether it's your pantry to look at food that's expired, whether it's your closet to say, this no longer fits me, or I don't like this, or my kids outgrew this and they're not using it anymore, or I used to be into this hobby and now I'm not, but I have all of this gear that surrounds it. So now I can donate it or give it to somebody else. There's always, life is going to happen. And because of that, we're going to have stuff. And even if you say, I want to lead a minimalistic life, and that's great, there's still going to be things that are going to come up in your life, and we're going to have to cycle through things. And that's just the nature of life. It is true, though, the less stuff you have, the less stuff you have to organize, and probably the less often you have to organize. So it is easier to keep up the less you own. But again, I'm not here to tell you that you should be a minimalist or preach minimalism, but I am saying I don't want you to start to feel like you are drowning in your stuff. I don't want you to feel like you're being smothered by things, because that will weigh you down. And I have yet to meet anybody that says, this is the legacy I want to leave. I want to leave a legacy of a cluttered mess. Nobody wants that. And so when we start to think about going back to that why piece, is our why, even if it's not for ourselves, think about the people who are in our lives. And maybe it is for you to be able to say, you know what, I've been ashamed or embarrassed to have people over because there's nowhere to sit, but I can change that. I have the power to change that. And again, you don't have to spend a lot of money. You don't have to spend money on product. You don't have to spend money to hire a professional organizer. I mean, if you have the means and you are willing to put in the work, it is a great investment. And again, we have a ton of amazing professional organizers in our partner program, which you can find on our website. I'll also link to them in our show notes, and they're all over the country. And we have some international partners as well. So if you are in a position you want to hire somebody, that's great. But even if you want to just roll up your sleeves and tackle this yourself, you can do it. And it's all a matter of having that action plan, being consistent, and knowing where you're starting, where your finish line is, but most importantly, what is the route that you're going to use to get there. And that's what we're talking about. So again, just to recap, here's what we're going to do. I want you to start small. Okay. And maybe what you're doing is starting by just writing down a list of all of the places, just brain dump. These are the things that are stressing me out. I hate this spot when I walk in the door and it's cluttered. I hate the fact that I come in, there's constantly dishes in this thing. I hate this, or these things are stressing me out. So just make this entire list. And if you want to make it into a little checklist, you can. And then you're going to decide how much time you're going to spend doing this each day or every other day. I would really encourage you, especially if you are somebody who struggles with chronic disorganization, to at least spend 10, 15 minutes a day, at least at the beginning, to start building your muscles, your, decluttering muscles. And And then you could do maybe like a longer session. It doesn't have to be the same amount of time every day. Maybe you're like, I do 10, 15 minutes on these days. And then on the weekends, I do a little bit longer because I have more flexibility or whatever the schedule is. And so you're going to decide how much time you're going to spend. You could set your timer to give you those buffers so you know how long you're going. And then I want you to use our ESP method, that empty that little micro space. Again, we're not talking about emptying the entire room. We're talking about that micro space. We're going to empty that. Then we're going to sort into our 4 piles: keep, donate, recycle, relocate. And keep is only keep in that area. So again, if you're talking about decluttering a dining room table, unless it's candlesticks or something relating to the place settings, it's not going to be kept there. Okay. When we get into the actual organization of a space, that's different, of like, the pantry, the closet, whatnot. So you have the keep, donate, recycle, relocate. And from there, you can navigate through and make those decisions. And that's the best place for you to start, and then to repeat it over and over again. And always, always come back to your why. So hopefully this has been helpful for you guys. And if you are somebody who is a professional organizer and thinks, I would really like to branch my business into helping people who are struggling with this chronic disorganization, or maybe I'm working with people I want to work with people who have a lot of emotional clutter. I think that's great. And if you're a professional organizer and you're like, that is not my jam, I really just enjoy going in there and organizing playrooms and color coding things, that's okay too. There's no right or wrong. I think it's just important, and I'm saying this from the entrepreneur in me, know your lane, know what you're good at, know the type of people you like to serve, and serve those people. And it's okay if somebody comes to you with a project that is not in your wheelhouse, to say, you know what, I really want you to get the help that you need, and I'm not the right person. And that is okay. So don't feel like you have to take a job that is counterintuitive to your own business model, your gifts, and the types of clients you want to attract. Being a, beautifying professional organizer is a different skill set than somebody who is purely doing clutter coaching. There is overlap in some areas, but just know who you are and know what you're good at. So I hope this has been helpful. We are pulling for you as always. If you have questions for us, if there's a topic that you would like to hear, or you'd like us to talk about, please let us know. I can't believe, again, this is 6 years we've been doing this. We have so much more to talk about. We've talked about so many different topics, so feel free to go back into our back catalog. There's tons and tons of resources on our website as well, simplybeorganized.com. And we're here to help. So until next week, I'm Lori Palau. Peace out.